Good evening, everyone. My name is Melissa Jean Baptiste. I am the communication specialist with the ACRB, and you are tuning in to Tuesday Night Talk with myself and
Lee Reed, Executive Director of the Atlanta Citizen Review Board.
if this is your first time listening to our podcast, I'll let Lee explain to you exactly what the ACRB does and who we are for the community.
Thank you, Melissa. Good to see you again. The Atlanta Citizen Review Board is an independent investigative agency of the city of Atlanta. Our primary focus is investigating citizens' complaints against Atlanta police and corrections officers, and we also engage in community education. Another part of our program is mediation. We offer a mediation program to give citizens and officers an opportunity to be able to work out a complaint or discuss a complaint to get that mutual understanding and respect that's so needed between citizens and officers. So I mentioned earlier about the investigations, which is our primary function. If a citizen has a complaint against an officer or a question against an officer, concern, contact our office, and one of our investigators will work with you to get your complaint filed, and then we'll conduct an investigation that includes interviewing you, interviewing the witnesses, interviewing the officers on the scene, the subject officers, pulling all records and recordings, and then writing a summary on that based on the policies to see if the police officer violated the APD policies. And then it'll go to our board, which would make the decision as to whether the officer violated the policies. Because the way the ACRB is structured, it has the the city staff, which there are 12 of us, and then it has a citizen board, which reflects the diversity of Atlanta, and there's 15 members on that board, and they're the ones who makes the decisions on the complaints. So that was just a quick overview about what we do as an agency. And tonight, though, we're going to talk about transforming police culture in Atlanta. So, Melissa, there was an article that was published recently. And if you could you give us some details on that article?
Yes, of course. So a few weeks ago on thegoverning.com, the article "Atlanta Calls for Police Transformation Amid a Crimes Peak," was published, and it pretty much detailed Atlanta continuing to be deeply divided when it comes to policing. Some want to defund the police department, while others want more officers. But police culture reform without defunding the police might actually be the best solution, the article states. As we all know, recently we had that Home Depot shooting, and one of the wounded in that shooting was a 55-year-old Georgia State University criminal justice professor, Balkan Topoli. Please excuse me for his last name, but he was actually one of the people shot at that time, and it's very ironic. It was very ironic to everyone that was reporting on it that a criminal justice professor was actually shot within a situation happening of crime. So that really raised a lot of conversation. And even for himself, he saw that Atlanta and America has two arguments, and they're talking past each other pretty much. Left-leaning activists want less policing and a different style of it, while right-leaning activists believe officers need the freedom to do their job and stop crime. As the professor has been healing and talking to people, the conversation around policing has shifted from last year, everyone pushing for reform, as we saw with George Floyd and all of the uprisings that happened across major cities in the country. Everyone kind of pushed for this reform and for defunding the police. But of course, this year, with an increase in violent crimes, people are looking to have more police on the street. So today, the topic that we really want to focus on, Lee, is there a middle ground solution for Atlanta and America's policing crisis that we have been experiencing for so long? Because we know this isn't a new problem that started last year. So we have a few questions for you, and we just want to dive into that. And the first one that we have here is, since the conversation to defund the police has come about, many have been confused as to what that really means. Understanding that provocative language may help shed light on a topic. What does it really mean, though it may be a big blanket, to defund the police? And how could we reallocate funds if we were taking them from the police department to help our community?
Okay, thank you, Melissa. You know, um,
That was a lot to unpack there.
the phrase defund the police, I mean, has various meanings for people. Like we were saying earlier, it's from totally getting rid of all policing altogether to and having you know an army of social workers and mental professionals handling the community issues. Um, I mean, the first thing is um, I think I like the instead of using defund the police, I think I like something like reallocation, reimagining, these things because one, let's be serious that um, the human element is always going to be the same. Everyone's not going to be on the same page about how they conduct themselves in the police department or how citizens conduct themselves out in the community.
Right.
And because of that, we will need somebody in an enforcement capacity. Now, what does that look like? I think it should look better than what we currently see and have seen in the past, right? So I want to just talk about a couple of things real quick that just putting aside the defund argument for a minute, some things that need to be put in place no matter what structure you have in place, right? And then we can go back to how do we look at funds.
Right.
First, when we think about anybody that's doing any job, and let's use policing now, officer selection. The people doing the job need to be selected carefully, right?
Exactly.
The second thing that has to happen is that people receive adequate and frequent training to be able to do their job, to deal with community problems as they develop, to be able to um, better get themselves to be better equipped to handle different situations in the community, right? And then the third thing, the biggest thing, is accountability. You have to have accountability. You can have an army of social workers doing a job, but if they're not accountable or held accountable for their actions or their inactions and how they handle a family's issues, you're gonna have problems, right? So the first three things that need to happen is officer selection, making better officer selections of people who actually carry a badge and a gun, making sure that the training is there and is consistent and frequent, right?
Continuous.
And making sure that accountability is understood and there's a culture of accountability in the police department from the top to the bottom, that everyone understands you will be held accountable for your actions and inactions, no matter who you are. And that needs to happen. A second thing that needs to happen before we start talking about, as we talked about, okay, what would policing look like and defund police or reallocating funds, reimagine, is that we as a society need to realize some of the things that we have lost. Respect for the community, respect for your fellow man, the humanity of each other, right? These are things that we need to get back in the community. Now, that does not say, that does not absolve police officers and police departments of being accountable for what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But it says that we're all in this together, right? So now let's get to what we talked about, the funding issue. society has a lot of just a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And where funds can help to create that support system for families and community members, that's a positive thing. At the same time, though, we have community members who are not going to conduct themselves the way that they should. So you're going to need
in every
police.
world, there are bad characters.
Yeah, you're going to need police.
Yep.
I mean, we can't avoid that as a fact. You know, we have to have policing to be able to address those issues as needed. But here's the thing, like I said earlier, you have the policing, but you have the accountability too. You have a culture of accountability. So that way, let's say if somebody is selected to be an officer, right, and they're leaning to do things wrong, they're held accountable for it.
Immediately.
Get them back straight again.
Yeah.
You don't just let things go, and then you have the problem on your hands. So, I mean, that's what I think when we're talking about defunding the police. I think it's a very big box. I think it's a very big box.
Right.
And there's ways that we could be looking at it, but it's going to require all hands on deck.
And as we said before, just talking before recording, I think it's just like a whistleblowing term. It's something that really alerts everyone. It gets everyone listening. And just as you said, everyone having that conversation may not be speaking the same conversation or talking about defunding, that defunding the police. We might not be all seeing it the same way, but definitely as far as, I'm concerned and I'm thinking about ACRB and how we can help, I definitely don't think that we can live in a lawless, community. We need policing. We need proper, authority in place. But just as you said, we need to have people that are, officers with integrity. We already have a system where there is a policy in place, but making sure that it's enforced and making sure that they are held accountable and keeping up with our community and knowing that it's not just about busting the bad guys, but also understanding the people that you're serving, maybe in a sense, and helping them out, because we know a lot of crimes, as we've seen reports say, come from young people. And sometimes young people are just, trying to get by, doing things that, they probably shouldn't. And had they had a different opportunity, they would take another route. Just as you said, everyone will not. And there are those bad characters that we do need policing for. We do need, those stringent policies for. But we just want to make sure that everyone gets the level of policing that they need, because sometimes we just see this excessive force being used on everyone. I think I saw a 10-year-old arrested in something that I was watching in the city. And it's ridiculous, where they could probably just be helping us out in a better way.
And that goes back to accountability.
Yep.
Human nature is that, for some people, human nature says, well, I can do it until I get caught. Mm-hmm. And then if I get caught and the consequences are not severe enough or not serious enough to me, I can continue doing it, right? So we have to understand that and ensure that we put the things in place that will hold people accountable as they need to be held accountable. Yep. When you take the badge and the gun, you take the oath to protect the community, you have to understand that accountability is a strong part of that. You can't separate the two. You cannot separate the two. It has to happen, and it has to be quick, and it has to be meaningful accountability.
Question for you, because even within the article, it states that crime has gone up a little bit more since, after Corona and everything, but it's still down from the generations before of crime when you look at the records in Atlanta. Do you think that the disparities that were, put in place because of Corona and people losing their jobs and things like that could be I think I would think so, like a major cause in the uptick in crime? And do you think that means we need more police within our community because of this uptick?
I think that you've had people who may have taken advantage of a situation,
Okay.
of circumstances, um, and them taking advantage of the COVID situation
Right.
and everything that happened with Floyd and with Brooks, that people have, some people have taken advantage of that, and have thought in their mind that, I can do what I want to do, because the police are rocking back on their heels now because of all of the intense pressure that's been on them to change.
Yeah.
I think that could be some of it. I think that, you know, there's work to be done on both sides.
Yep.
Definitely on the police department, and there's some work that we could do in the community as well. And any programs that the city or that well-meaning citizens can develop and create to provide opportunities and exposure, positive exposure to our youth, I think would be important. I
Right.
think if we could come up with a way to incentivize some of our youth to see that there is another way, there are other opportunities when you're bored, or when you don't want to go to school, or when struggling to meet family obligations, that there are other ways to do that. And I think that we could, those are some things that we could certainly invest in.
And the article definitely, I do think that even within the police force, the officers are seeing that, because I mean, at this point, at this time, Atlanta is currently at their lowest with officers. We know last year they did have a few days in the week where they were, on strike. So everyone's not, sitting easy behind that blue wall, and with the policies that are in place and how things are moving. So there are people, of course, that we know among the force that don't like this culture that we have and would like to see a change. But we also have people like Dave Wilkinson of Atlanta Police. I believe the Atlanta Department, the
Atlanta Police Foundation.
Atlanta Police Foundation, excuse me, yeah, that actually has put an at-risk youth center in place for us. But just as you said, we can have those things, but it's more of, so how do we make them come? How do we have the youth, actually be more aware of these opportunities that they have? And it incentivizes the officers as well, giving them the opportunity to purchase land or a home within their community, so they could actually know the people that they're policing and know, the community. So we definitely are finding people, just as you said, those good Samaritans that are trying to put those things in place. But I definitely think we need a more hands-on approach. And of course, when we think about the history of the police and stuff, it doesn't have the best origins. So it probably would be the best thing to rethink the culture of policing versus doing away with it altogether.
Yeah, and like with a lot of things, you have to know the people that you're dealing with.
Exactly.
Understand the challenges, understand the circumstances, and here's one thing that has to happen. We have to get back to the humanity of people.
Yeah.
On both sides.
On both sides.
Because a citizen just see a cop, that's all you see is a cop.
Yeah.
But it's a cop who is a human, who has a family,
kids.
has connections, who has these. Just like a cop, when you see a citizen, there's more to that citizen than what he or she is doing at that moment.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. We know it can be done because we see how different people are treated by police.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not like, all officers are this and you know, they across the board, they just don't know how to act. No, because you know how to act when you're dealing with certain people. You understand, oh, I better not do this, or I'm gonna get in trouble if I do that to this person,
Right.
you know. But that's
Oh,
because you respect that person's humanity as opposed to another person's humanity. You understand that, oh, there's going to be consequences if I jack this person up. Whereas if I jack this person up, nobody cares because nobody cares about that person. And that's a society thing.
yeah.
Because as a society, we have lessened the value. And I would argue that certain members in society never had a value for them. You know, so if society doesn't value people, certain people, poor people, black people, white people, you know, doesn't value certain people, what are you going to get? So we got to raise the bar valuing humanity and valuing people
People.
across the board.
And it's a thing of like just everyone being for self. Just as you said, you made a really great point. Like the officer, we see so much of how the community are. We feel the community feels like police are on one side and the community is on the other side. But we also have to think that, you know, these are people too. But it's always what we see as far as the officer treating the community bad or something in that type of way. But we also have to remember as community members, you know, to keep those people with the utmost respect and know that they are putting themselves on the line every day for us. I feel like how you said there's just a devaluation of like respect of one another. And we have to really think about the job that these people do every day. So
And
there's
and 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 yes, that is true. And at the same time, you know, because at the end of the day, it is a job that people chose to do.
mhm,
It's a job that carries a lot of responsibility, and it's not a job for everybody. And with your training and understanding of your policies and the law, there is a certain amount of accountability that must be there. If someone is an officer who's not willing to be held accountable for their work, then that shouldn't be the person. You know what I'm saying? That's wearing the uniform. So you know that accountability has to be there. You know, that integrity has to be there.
integrity.
You know, and um citizens deserve it. They deserve to be treated with respect. They deserve to be treated with dignity. You know, they deserve to be arrested and prosecuted if they're breaking the
They break the
law,
law. Yep.
right?
Yep.
We as a society have agreed that's what we want to do, but everything has to be done the right way, the right way.
I think, you know, the act of an arrest is, you know, so many emotions go through that already, you know, humiliation or whatever the person might be feeling. I think it's important to just keep it as professional as possible, you know, not degrade the person even more. Is something that has to happen, of course. And if it has to happen in that time, but I think it's always important about just keeping that level of professionalism, just as you said, and realizing that this is a person. You know, they may be going through high emotions, but as you said, that officer chose to be an officer, and you know, you knowingly know you will be in some high stress kind of situations, and you need to be accountable and know how to, you know, de-escalate those type of things. A civilian may not have the type of training that an officer does, so they're going to kind of fly off the handle if they're getting arrested. But it's up to the officer, and that may seem like a lot of responsibility to them, but it's the job you chose to kind of help diffuse it, and I guess kind of be a social, not a social worker, but I don't know, someone to help with that, you know, with that person's behavior in the moment, because they are going through something.
And well, and to be a people person,
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna do your job, and we expect you to do your job, but be a people person while you're doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Be personable,
You know,
understanding,
to be able to
empathetic
say,
at times.
you know, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do,
Mhm.
but uh, I'm going to maintain my professionalism, my integrity in doing it, and um, treat you just as I would treat any other citizen out here. Because again, we know that it happens, and that officers can exercise restraint when they need to, because we see
because
it all the time.
We've seen it happen so many times with more
Like, man, how
dangerous
did that person
suspects,
get away with that? That he didn't
with
get
way
killed?
more dangerous suspects. Yes.
He didn't get killed? Wow. What?
Yeah.
And so we know it can happen. So I don't, that's why, people talk about training and stuff. Yeah, training is important and it's needed. And it has to happen. But some of this stuff is not from a lack of training. Some of this stuff that happens is from a lack of, I don't see your humanity.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to be able to get away with it.
And I think it goes with the first point that you made, that it all starts with an upstanding, officer, someone that can be held accountable, someone that has integrity, because you can't teach that in the training. If we forego getting a good person and just going with someone who, as you said, is not personable or does not have, any humanity towards, African Americans or women or a woman or, a man, like they're not going to ever get that. No amount of training will ever teach them that. So I think that's very important. All of the steps that you named, as far as making that shift and having a better police culture, like making sure we really vet those officers prior to anything happening, and making sure the policies are in place, making sure they are held accountable when they break those policies, and moving forward. It's a real conversation, and though they have grabbed some ears with the defund the police, maybe this might be the better conversation to have, transforming police culture. And that allows us to think a little bit deeper than just taking money away from them or thinking that we would take officers off the street completely, because I don't think that's what we want. That we can't live like that.
And there's no magic bullet for this.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not going to happen
trial
overnight. But one thing I will say is that if we invest in changing the police culture, that'll put us miles ahead as it relates to respect and humanity, as it relates to accountability.
Right.
And we really hone in on who's selected as officers. That helps. That's going to make a difference. And those things take time to develop. But while we're doing that, we need to be looking at, hey, you know what? There's some gaps in society that need to be filled. There's some support systems that maybe need to be built out some more, so that some of these kids and some other folks who are struggling or having mental health challenges or economic type of challenges, that they can see something different, that they can be exposed to something different and have the tools to be able to help move them to the next level.
Yeah. And I don't think that these aren't things that we haven't had in place already. There's things like public service, officers, not an actual police officer, but a public service officer can come and help in a situation. So these are things that have been in place, but I think we just need to have more backing behind it. And just as you said, because we could have a mental health call and then it escalates from there, you will still need to call the police. So right. It's finding the balance of policing and, us really getting to the root of, the core of what causes those disparities when we're talking about different people and their different interactions with the police. But we know that comes from the individual a lot of the times. It's not necessarily rooted in that department. Everyone doesn't have those same views, but it does hurt even just to have one bad officer out there, taking a life or just using that excessive force.
And again, I'll say that as a society, we devalue our own members in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to change.
Yeah.
Because every citizen has a right to have some dignity, has a right to be respected, and that goes across, from policing to how we move and operate in this
Opening the door
society.
for someone, just
You know what I
being
mean?
nice. Yeah. Like
Going
no
to the
matter social
store, you
class.
still supposed to have some respect from another citizen and common decency towards another citizen. I mean,
Right.
those are things that as a society, we really need to start having a conversation about.
And that is definitely true. Well, as we look to our officers to do better in themselves, it's also up to the community to like treat each other better, and to treat our public servants, because they do serve us. They're for the community. We need to figure out how we're going to move around better with each other and with them. But that was definitely something that we can go on and on about. And I think if we change that, even though defund the police has definitely picked up some traction, if we can get reforming police culture out there, that will open up even better conversations into some of the stuff that we talked about today, because you gave some really, really great points, and it shows that it's on both sides to make a difference. But this is our time for tonight, and we're going to go ahead and close out. If you have any questions for us or would like to file a complaint, please send us a chat or visit our website at acrbgov.org. You can also give us a call. This is your favorite part, Lee. Give us a call where?
404-782, nope, 404-865-8622.
You was about to
I
give out
almost
that
got you.
personal.
404-865-8622.
And you
Any
can also
questions
look.
or concerns about your interactions with a police officer, with an Atlanta police or corrections officer, please contact us. The only way we can hold officers accountable is for you to tell us about what you are experiencing.
Exactly.
Your mouth being closed about it, or telling your friend about it, or your mother about it, that's not going to help us hold them accountable. You can certainly tell them about it, but you need to tell us about it so that we can do an investigation and hold officers accountable who need to be held accountable.
That's great, Lee. And that is definitely true. You can also find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we're on there as the Atlanta Citizens Review Board. And we hope to see you again next week, same time, 6 p.m. Well, I'm sorry, the week after. It's every other Tuesday. So the week after. But thank you so much for your time, Lee. And everyone have a good night.
Thank you, Melissa. All right. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.